house, dude. Don't come through the door. I will shoot.
Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I'm super grateful. Yes, I'm back with another interview, and this time with Chuck Michel from the California Rifle and Pistol Association and Michel and Associates, because CRPA is suing everybody to restore your rights. And that's a good thing in the state of California, as well as other places, by the way. But the latest thing is they just filed a lawsuit against the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department because they're taking too stinking long to issue concealed carry permits in Los Angeles County. They're charging way too much, and they're tacking on a whole bunch of onerous nonsense people have to go through in order to get a permit. With the details, here's Chuck. Hey, Chuck, thank you very much for joining me again. I really do appreciate it. And it sounds like you've got, once again, you have exciting news for us, which I'm always grateful for. The state is issuing permits in a lot of cities, but some of them are making it harder than others. You guys are suing one of them. What's going on?
Well, let me give you a little backdrop here to this. We're suing the County of Los Angeles, to cut to the big news. We're suing the County of Los Angeles and the City of Laverne and the California Department of Justice because they are taking too long and charging too much to get a permit to carry a firearm in public. They're making it too hard and too expensive. And it's not something that the Bruin decision, which I assume everybody is aware of that watches your show, allows. So when Bruin came down, the CRPA launched the CCW Reckoning Project. That project had us send letters to all the cities or counties that were not issuing permits historically. Remember, a lot of the counties were actually pretty much shall issue anyway. All the red counties pretty much went that way. Even some of the counties that were historically viewed as blue, like Orange County, started issuing permits after the Peruta decision, which was another CRPA case that we won in the 3-judge panel and then lost en banc. But the sheriffs in some of those counties read that opinion, and even though it wasn't a court order, it was persuasive and it changed a lot of minds. So we really had a lot of counties and cities that were issuing permits, but you always had your holdouts, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and LA County, that didn't want to issue. So we worked with those cities to the extent we could to inform them of their constitutional obligations, inform them what they could and could not do when processing CCW applications. And many of them came into line. They saw, yeah, this is what Bruin says, we got to do this, and they went along with it. But in LA County, for example, despite the fact that they are trying to process these applications, the wait time is over a year typically. And that is simply not a reasonable delay. The California state law says it's got to be done in 120 days. So they're not even complying with state law. Now, this is not necessarily because of a philosophical or a political inclination as much as it is they just don't have the manpower. But that's not our problem. If the state wants to set up a licensing scheme that requires the administrative authority, I mean, this is like the DMV. If you want to set that licensing scheme up, you can't charge people, especially when it comes to an enumerated constitutional right to carry that firearm in public for self-defense or to defend your family or others. The state has to absorb those administrative costs, or at least most of them. So the price of setting up a processing department at the LA County Sheriff's Office is not our problem. They have to spend the money, and the LA County Board of Supervisors is going to have to allocate the money to set up something that will get these applications processed faster. And the other thing is, in cities like Laverne, they're charging $1,000 to go through your CCW application process, which obviously prices most people out of the market. It's like a poll tax. There's another way to deprive people of their right to get a permit to carry. So we're suing Laverne. We're also suing the California Department of Justice because they're taking too long to do background checks. And we're also challenging the fact that the state of California does not recognize out-of-state CCW permits. You can't somebody's right to carry a firearm does not end when they come into California just because they can't get a California permit because they're not a California resident. So these are some pretty seismic changes that we're trying to force LA County to adopt. And keep in mind, LA County is the biggest county in the state. However many million people are in LA County now, that's going to be the place where there's the most CCWs issued. So we chose LA County because it was taking so long, and also because this is where most of the applicants live that want to get this permit. So it's I think it's a great thing to be trying to change. We're looking forward to making the county come in line and lower the fees and speed up the process and get people those permits that they're constitutionally entitled to.
Chuck, you mentioned that, LA County is the largest county, so it's a good place to go. I bring that up only because there are other counties that sometimes take a year. San Diego sometimes takes 10 months, 11 months, a year to get you through the process. But it sounds like, are you saying it's not necessary to sue every county? If you make an example out of one, then the others might change?
Exactly. Once the court says you can't take this long, you have to allocate the resources to do the permit processing in a timely constitutional manner. We take that decision to whatever the next city or county is that's taking too long. And we're not stopping with LA County. Anybody that takes more, for starters, anybody that takes more than 120 days is going to have to change their practices. And then we'll consider whether or not 120 days is too long as we get through this. But right now, California state law says they can take up to 120 days. So we're not challenging that in this particular lawsuit. We're just challenging the delays and the costs beyond that.
Yeah, if we can get them down to 120 days, and we can get them down to 90 days, we can get them down to 60 days, we can get them down to 30 days. You're kind of hacking away at it to shorten that time.
Once they have to allocate the resources, it's not going to take. Once you have enough people processing applications, most states it takes 30 days or less, and the price is a couple $100, not $1,000. So
well, and then when you talk about price, I think the other issue is it's not just the price of the permit application. It's the background checks, the course that you have to take, the fact some of these counties are wanting you to do some sort of a psychological evaluation or whatever. Right. You start adding all this crap up, and you end up, even in a county that only charges $150 or $200 for the licensing, you're still at $400 or $500 by the time you get through all that process. And just as you said about the $1,000, that prices a lot of folks out of their constitutional right to carry, just by virtue of the fact that you have all this stuff. Now, the state, obviously through SB2, wants to make the class longer, wants to make the class more onerous. Well, instruction companies, training companies like me, if I got to make it a 2-day class instead of a 1-day class, I have to raise the price. I don't have a choice. Right. And so now, because otherwise I'm not making any money, I'm losing money, and we're not a charitable organization. So at some point, now you're just increasing the requirements, and you're increasing the load on the citizen, and you're taking a whole lot of folks who don't make as much money out of the pool of people who can exercise their constitutional rights.
And that's kind of the idea, because that's the state of California's approach, is make it as expensive as possible, limit people's options on what they can buy, where they can have it, as much as possible, because it's part of their effort to basically murder the gun culture. They want to wipe out gun ownership as a political force. Or gun owners as a political force. And so the more you charge, the more red tape you have to jump through, the less people, the more people who will give up. And that's what they're counting on.
The other thing you mentioned here was which is a big deal for everybody, I think, is the idea that California does not honor permits from anywhere. And as a result, a lot of states won't honor California's permits because it's like, well, if you won't honor ours, I won't honor yours, kind of a thing.
And California won't give you a permit if you're not a resident.
Well, that's the other thing. So now is that a state law that says they can't do that, or is that a policy thing with the individual sheriff's departments?
No, most of it's in state law, embodied in state law. There's no provision in state law for an out-of-state resident to apply for a CCW permit in California. And there's no recognition in state law of out-of-state permits. So that's why we're suing the California Department of Justice and Attorney General Rob Bonta to change that, and to make them, DOJ, one of the log jams here is DOJ does these background checks, and they take too long to do that too.
You mentioned SB2. Well, I guess it sounds to me like again, I always ask you to put your prognosticator's hat on. You get to be the great Karnak, even though Johnny Carson's not around anymore. I don't know where your envelope is, but you can look for an envelope. What do you think our odds are of winning some of the items that you're suing on? Because you listed quite a few that you're suing LA County.
Well, the non-resident thing is going to be the trickiest one, but that's pretty clear too. I mean, you can't say that somebody's right to carry a gun ends at the state line. So there has to be a mechanism to get the permit that the state is requiring so that you can carry inside the state. The rest of the stuff, I think, and it's guns.
I realize you're not a prophet. Nobody's going to hold you to it.
But I look at it as a reason and logic exercise. You just have to remember that it's political. So it depends on the judge. It depends on what the attorney general comes up with, and they're not. They're going to be I guarantee the complaint that we filed yesterday is already on the desk of some Everytown law lawyer paid by Bloomberg, trying to say, how do we get around this? How do we fight this? How do we beat this? So because they're not, the county council at the County of Los Angeles is not sitting there thinking this through at anywhere near the level of sophistication and deviousness that Everytown law does. The Everytown law is behind pretty much every argument for every gun law in the country, whether it's semi-autos or magazines or prohibited people or prohibited places or whatever it is. Everytown law is ghostwriting a lot of those briefs.
Wow. So what do you think? You mentioned SB2. What's going on with SB2? Because that is a constant everyday question that I get. Where are we at with that?
Well, remember, SB2 has two components. First, it sets up an array of places that it designates as sensitive, so guns can't be possessed there, even with a CCW, a concealed carry permit. So we've immediately challenged that. We challenged that before Newsom even signed it. And we've got a hearing coming up on that. Actually, it might be today. You may have to have me back tomorrow. But I don't think the judge is going to rule it. But we sought an injunction. We challenged those over-designation of sensitive places. We sought an injunction. There's a hearing on that. We'll get a ruling. The second component of SB2 is these enhanced qualification requirements. And we decided to do it separately because we didn't want to get wrapped around the axle with a standing argument. Really what we need is someone who gets denied a CCW because they didn't do one of the things in SB2's qualification list, because then they have clear standing to challenge that state law. We're ready to challenge that state law as soon as we get the plaintiffs to help us do it.
So you say you got a hearing on the part that makes the whole state, except the inside of my house, a sensitive place, pretty much. Yeah. Do you feel like there's a chance of getting an injunction, a temporary injunction against this law before it becomes law and actually is starting to be enforced in January?
We absolutely do. I think the court is going to be very well aware that there's this January date looming. And the other thing is, these sensitive place laws, California is a day late or a year late on passing this law. They tried to pass it last year, but CRPA and GOC's lobbyists stopped it by one vote. And so all these other states passed it after California failed to first, and they were all immediately challenged. So you got New York, New Jersey, Hawaii. I can't even remember some of the other places that tried to over-designate sensitive places to ban you from having a gun there. But they've mostly lost in all of those jurisdictions. So we have a lot of precedent from other district courts saying, this is unconstitutional, and the injunctions were issued there. Most of those are on appeal now, but that's something that the judge is going to read. He's already got this consensus that everything we're saying is right.
Well, and you just pointed out something, I think, a few minutes ago about Everytown is, you kind of get the feeling that all these states have a meeting. Maybe they have a Zoom call, and they all agree, let's all do this. But that's not what's happening, is it? I mean, it seems like every town is spoon feeding this stuff to them, aren't they?
Yeah, every town is running the show. They're doing model laws. They're doing model briefs. They're doing model, all kinds of stuff and research for the states. That's not to say that the states don't do anything. The state deputy attorney generals, but every town law is clearly there to help them oppose our efforts to strike down unconstitutional laws like SB2 and like what the LA County Sheriff is doing.
So you said the LA County Sheriff is not necessarily it's not necessarily an ideological thing or a political thing. It's the fact that they're counting the beans and they ain't got enough beans and they can't hire enough people and like that. So at curiosity's sake, if they can't afford to hire more people, can they afford to fight in the court? Do they just fold?
Those are two different budgets. And the LA County Sheriff is at odds with the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. You had the whole defund the police movement, all that stuff. LA County's budget, Sheriff Department budget, is not. It's fought. The Board of Supervisors tries not to give LA County Sheriff the money that it really needs to fight crime, which is what it should be doing. You don't need sworn officers to process CCW applications. You need, the equivalent of paralegal. You need somebody smart, but not, ready to carry a gun even as a law enforcement officer. They just have to be. It's clerical. It's a clerical job mostly. So you need more clerks.
So will they fold, do you think, or will they fight you?
Well, I don't. I'm going to probably reach out to county council and say, what do we need to do? Because I know that the sheriff wants more money for all kinds of different things in his department. I'd offer to help them try and get it. I mean, we can, whatever we can do. If that's the problem, you need more money. What do we got to do? We could launch a campaign to tell the Board of Supervisors what's going on. You need to give more money to this. The county's going to be out a lot of money for not just for legal fees, but for damages for some of these people too. So, it's in their best interest to stop playing games and to fund this.
All right. So wait a minute. So I get these questions all the time. Just run them down for me, because I get, well, is anybody suing on the roster? Is anybody suing on this? Is anybody suing on that? Is anybody suing on that? I don't need the names of the cases. Just give me an idea. In California, what right now is CRPA dragging California kicking and screaming through the court on?
Okay, I have to.
Because the list is pretty long.
I have to go to my list.
I know. I get it.
Okay, so we've got two gun show cases. We won an injunction against the state trying to ban gun shows on state agriculture on state fairgrounds across the state. We won that. That's in the Ninth Circuit. We've got Bolin v. Bonta. That's the roster case. We've got the case we just talked about. I'm doing these in alphabetical order. The CRPA v. LA County Sheriff. We just talked about that. We've got Duncan, which is a magazine case. We've got the Glendale lawsuit. That was a precursor sensitive places lawsuit, which we just got them to change their law to allow guns in places that they had banned them before. We've got a case against the DOJ for their data leak, the data breach. We've got Junior Sports Magazines versus Bonta. That's the ban on marketing firearms to minors, which that's in the Ninth Circuit now too. We've got May v. Bonta, which is SB2 that we talked about. We've got Rhodey, which we talked about. We got Rupp, which is the a challenge to the assault weapon law. It's a companion case sort of to the Miller case that won in front of Judge Benitez. We've got I'm calling it CRPA or GOC v. Bonta, which is the FFL requirement that FFLs videotape all transactions. That lawsuit's going to be filed probably this week. Then we've got challenges to insurance mandates. We're getting a challenge ready for the excise tax, the 11% tax that they're trying to impose on firearms and ammunition. And then there's the gun safety an accountability act, I can't remember the exact name, that's being pushed as a statewide initiative that would charge you a fee every year for every gun you have. So we're gearing up to challenge that. It's not even on the ballot yet, but they're going to have to spend a lot of money to get 900,000 signatures. But they will, even if it has to be Bloomberg writing the check. And there's a few others. So that's kind of the list.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything from soup to nuts, assault weapons ban, and everything that everybody hates, pretty much. So there you are. Well done. Round of applause for Chuck and his team.
Yeah, the team. If a law firm was Ringling Brothers, I'd be the guy in the middle with the top hat and the cane. But the lions and the tigers and the bears, they're all in those rings fighting the DOJ clowns.
I'm going to get you a Ringling Brothers outfit or something, whatever the circus master guy is. I need a Monopoly coattails. Absolutely.
And top hat.
Chuck, thank you very much. Have a great week. Let me know tomorrow if something happens, okay? And we'll get you back on.
Will do, Joel. Thanks for having me. Thanks for getting us word.
You bet. Thank you very much for watching the whole interview. I'm very grateful that you did that. Please do support the channel, like, subscribe, share. Let's get this information out there. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing to one of these places down here, because those are the ones that do not delete my videos and don't shadow ban me. YouTube most certainly does. Rumble and X do not. So go to one of those, please, and follow, subscribe, or whatever. That would be super helpful. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that by going to GunGuyTVcrew.com, or you'll find Gun Guy TV on both Patreon and Locals, and you can join there. Have a great week. Thank you very much for all of your support. Have a very Merry Christmas, and wherever you go, whatever you do, stay safe.